everyone, this is Michelle with Designs by JuJu, and in today's video tutorial we are going to be making this adorable leprechaun wall hanging. It's made completely in the hoop with your embroidery machine. So we are ready to get stitching. I have already went ahead and prepped all of my materials from the PDF instructions, and I'm going to be making the 6x10 size. So let's head over to the embroidery machine and let's get started. I will be following right along with those PDF instructions. Those are included free within your purchase from Designs by JuJu, and they include step-by-step pictures for every stitch that you will complete in this tutorial. So what we're going to go ahead and do here is I already have my wash away mesh stabilizer loaded onto my 6x10 hoop. Designs by JuJu recommends using 2 sheets of wash away mesh if yours is maybe on the thinner side. I also agree with that. Mine is a little bit thicker, so I can get away with 1 sheet. But if yours is prone to ripping through during stitching, two pieces of wash away mesh is recommended. Mine works fine with just 1, so I'll just be using 1. You do want it to be a wash away stabilizer because at the end we will remove all of that excess so that you don't have any stabilizer hanging over along the edges. So I have my wash away mesh loaded and I'm ready to stitch the first part of my design. For the 6x10 there are 3 separate hoopings we are going to do. So the first hooping is going to be the body and arms. So let's go ahead and get started. The first stitch is going to be the placement line for my batting. This is the placement stitch for the batting for the body. So I'm going to go ahead and lay my batting down. Make sure that it is nice and smooth. And then now I'm going to run the tack down line for it. Okay, next I'm going to remove my hoop from my machine and trim away the excess batting right along that tack down line. I have just trimmed right along the edge of that tack down line using my curved edge applique scissors here. These are linked in our Amazon storefront. And I just want to make sure that when I'm trimming this, I do not cut any of the stitches. So that's what I've done. I'm ready to go ahead and load this back onto my machine. And next we'll have the placement line for some fabric. All right, there is our tack down line for the first part of our design, and I'm going to use this fabric. This is supposed to be like the undershirt for the leprechaun. So now I'm going to tack it down. And then I'm going to again remove it from my machine and trim away around the edges, all of that excess fabric. You are going to repeat these same steps for all of the applique pieces. Now that the base of the body is complete, we have all of our applique fabric finished. We're ready to start doing some of the detail stitching. The first detail stitching that we're going to do is going to be the belt. You can select any thread colors that you like for the detail stitching. There are also some buttonholes that we'll complete, but we'll do that after we add our backing. Okay, next I will repeat these same steps for all detail stitching. All of my detail stitching is complete for this first portion. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my hoop from my machine, and I am going to flip my hoop over to the back side. So here's the back side of my design. And what I need to do now at this step is add my backing. So I am just going to be using some green fabric. I have went ahead and applied some SF101 to the back of it for some added support and durability. You can also do that with your front fabrics too if you prefer. And I just need to make sure that all of my edges are covered. My fabric's laying nice and flat. And then I am going to go all the way around that fabric and secure it using some paper medical tape. I love this paper medical tape. If you've watched any of the other tutorials I've done, it is easy to use, it's relatively inexpensive, and it does not gunk up your needle if you happen to have it in the stitch path, which I love because we don't want to break any needles or get anything gross in our machine. So I'm going to go ahead and secure the backing. And then I will put my hoop back onto my machine and run the tack down stitch for the backing. Okay, now I'm going to remove my hoop from my machine again and flip my hoop over to the back side. And now I want to trim right along the outside edge of that stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I have just trimmed away the excess fabric, and as you can see, you want to trim it close, but not close enough that you trim those stitches. Okay, there's a fine line between getting too close and not close enough. You want it close enough that way when your satin stitches, it covers that edging right along there, but you don't want to be too close because if you nick a stitch, your fabric will pull away. And on the opposite end of that, if your fabric is too long, it will hang out of your satin stitch, and that leaves kind of an unfinished look. All right, so let's load our hoop back onto our machine, and we're going to start doing some of the satin stitching. I just did the first satin stitching. This is for the little undershirt, and I wanted to show you what I meant about how that secures in all of that fabric. So that satin stitch pulls it nice and tight, and it helps to give it a finished look from the back and from the front. So now we are ready to continue on with our stitching, and I'm going to do all of the satin stitching that goes clear around the vest. I'm going to be using some fun green variegated thread because I just love the way variegated thread looks. So let's get it stitching. All of the satin stitching is complete on the vest, so now we're ready to do our buttonholes. The final stitch on the vest is going to be a button placement line. It's just a little X, and that'll be the last stitch for this vest. All right, the vest is complete. So now we are going to repeat those same steps with the fabric tack down or the batting tack down, and then all of our applique work for the two arms. I am going to do both of those steps off camera, and then we'll get back together. Okay, I've just finished stitching the arms. So now what I'm going to do is remove my stabilizer from my hoop, and then I am going to carefully trim using some sharp scissors all the way around these edges. So let me show you what that looks like. You do not want to get too close because you do not want to cut the satin stitching. So let me show you and then you can try. Okay, once you have it trimmed around the edge, you can see that I left just a little bit of that wash away stabilizer. And this is why you want to use the wash away mesh, because now you can use a saturated, just with water, a saturated Q-tip, and you can go right along the edge here and it will remove that excess stabilizer. This is why I have to be super careful too, not to trim those stitches when you cut around it, because if you do, you're going, as you're rubbing here, it's going to start unraveling. Okay, so see, I'm going to go all the way around. You can see that that part that I just did has removed the excess stabilizer. You can also use your finger. Sometimes I like to just stand by the sink and dip my finger in and rub along the edge too. So either way works, but you're going to go all the way around your pieces here and do that for both arms and the body. And then when you're finished, you'll set it off to the side, and then you're going to complete the remaining 2 hoopings if you're doing the 6x10 size. If you do the 5x7, there is an additional 4th hooping that you will need to complete also. So go ahead and complete your hoopings, repeating these same steps with your batting, fabric, applique. Don't forget to add your backing, and then removing your excess stabilizer. And then we will get back together once all of those steps are complete. I have finished stitching all of my leprechaun pieces, and now I'm ready to start assembling. So as you can see, I've already started some of the assembly process. I removed all of the excess wash away stabilizer, and then I have went ahead and started to add some of the buttons. So if you remember in the first portion of the video when we stitched the buttonholes, and then we also stitched these X's on some of the pieces, these are where your buttons are going to go, and then these are your buttonholes. So we're ready to start doing that for these remaining pieces here. Like I said, I've already went ahead and added the buttonholes, or the buttons, on the legs and the arms. So these pieces are already prepped and ready. Now I'm ready to come over to the head and the body. So for the legs and the arms, I chose to use black buttons, but for this part, I want to use a button that is going to coordinate with the color of the beard, because they're going to have it overlap. So if I used a black button, it would be pretty obvious when I stitched it. So I'm going to go ahead and use this orange button that I have, and I'm just going to hand sew this button onto the shirt. There are other ways you could do that. If you want to use your sewing machine to add your buttons, you certainly can. I'm just going to quickly hand stitch it. If you are not someone that wants to use buttons, there have been a ton of other creative ideas for ways to assemble your in the hoop wall hangings shared within the Designs by JuJu Blessings Facebook group. So make sure you check that out if you think you would like to try a different method. So I'm going to hand stitch this and then we'll come back together. I have my button attached to the body of the leprechaun, so now we're ready to go on to the next step. So now I need to open up these buttonholes here, and I am actually going to use a seam ripper to do this part. You could use a sharp tipped pair of scissors also. Whatever method you choose works best for you. The key to using the seam ripper though is to go slow. I'm just going to poke mine in here through to the back. You can see that. And then I'm just going to gently push it to the other end. You do not want to go fast, because if you get wild with it, you can rip straight through your whole project. So just be gentle when you're doing this portion. So there, I've ripped my hole for my button, and I'm going to do that on the remaining buttonholes as well as on the beard. My buttonholes are now open, so the remaining part that I need to do before I can start assembling is I need to go over to the head here and I need to punch out these two holes and attach a ribbon. Now I have a 4-year-old, and so I'm actually going to reinforce these holes with some eyelets. That's not something that you have to do, but I know that my daughter is going to be running all over our house with this leprechaun and I want it to be nice and sturdy. So I'm going to go ahead and use my hole puncher here to punch out these two holes, and then I'm going to reinforce it with just 2 eyelets. If you chose not to reinforce the holes, that is totally fine also. I did want to show you what it looks like once you punch those holes out. There is a nice satin stitch that goes around both of those holes that would keep it from fraying and tearing your fabric. So the eyelets are not necessary, but they are just something I'm going to do to make mine a little bit sturdier. The final part is to add a ribbon. So choose a length that is appropriate for you and a ribbon that you like, and you can tie it through so you can hang it. My leprechaun wall hanging is complete and he's so cute. Oh my goodness. So I just wanted to show you some of the detailing on it and some of the fabrics that you can use. So you can see I chose a really cute sparkly cotton for the hat and the apparel, and then for the hat band and the buckle as well as the boots I used some embroidery vinyl. So this vinyl is different than vinyl you would use on like a cutting machine. So make sure that you're selecting one that's appropriate for embroidery, but it really can add some pizzazz to a project. So this is the one I chose because it matches with the clothing. And then I just love anything with a little bit of sparkle. His undershirt has some gold flecks in it, and then of course the pants and the boots. So he is so cute and he will be such a fun addition to our house as we approach spring. There are a variety of other adorable wall hangings available for purchase from Designs by JuJu, so make sure you check out the Designs by JuJu blog for a step-by-step tutorial for how to make this, as well as the Designs by JuJu Blessings Facebook group, where I said you can find some more inspiration for ways to make your own wall hanging, ways to customize it and make it work for you. All of those things will be linked in the description box below. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel for more videos and helpful tips and tricks, and we hope to see you soon. Happy stitching!